You guys can see that okay?
Yep.
Perfect. So, yeah, like I said, Mark, appreciate you having me on. I'm excited to be here, talk to you guys about self-directed IRAs. This is kind of what I do and what Quest does. We're really big on education and kind of helping promote, what this product is, what is private investing, because a lot of people really don't know about it. So, number one is going to be, our disclaimer. We always do this, before every webinar, any kind of class we teach, anything like that. So, Quest and by extension myself, we are not allowed to give any sort of tax, legal, or investment advice. So this is really purely for your education. Certainly, if you have questions, I think maybe Mark, we wanted to hold this to the end. But either way, if you have questions afterwards, want to give me a call, and I'm happy to help, and certainly always available. So a little bit about me. I know Mark kind of went into a pretty good introduction, but like you said, I was born and raised in Houston. I've been around real estate and private investing for a lot of my life. My parents were they flipped homes for a long time, and they've done some other mobile home investments and things like that. So from a really young age, I was kind of exposed to it and really taught me a lot, and I think sort of set me down this path of where I am today. So I really do enjoy it. I'm becoming an active investor myself, but I attended Texas A&M, got my degree in agricultural economics, focused in finance and real estate. So I was doing financial planning for a while before I came to Quest, and found myself here. And now working on, growing in my career, getting more and more, what am I trying to say? Certifications, things like that. So because I have been exposed to this industry for a really long time, I've kind of learned a lot, really understand what the IRS looks for, what their rules and things are. So the first thing I want to talk about, guys, as we kind of get into what self-directed IRAs are, is the two types of entities that the IRS puts, categorizes everything and everyone in. So number one being taxable entities. Obviously, this includes you, right? So you receive income, whether it's W-2, 1099, Schedule C, anything like that. You receive an income, you pay your taxes on it, you're a taxable entity. This also includes any other type of LLCs or S corps, C corps, and trusts. Okay. So on the flip side, I'm sure you could guess the other category of types of entities is non-taxable entities. So this includes actually self-directed IRAs, believe it or not. They are a non-taxable entity. We'll kind of dive more into what that means here in the next few slides. But this also includes your 401k that you have at work, solo 401ks, and any other type of qualified retirement plan. So if you, for any teachers out there or military workers, if you have TSP, TRS, anything like that, that's kind of what we're talking about there. The next thing is, right, what is a self-directed IRA? And I think there's a lot of confusion on this and a lot of misinformation out there really as to what a self-directed IRA is. So the biggest thing, guys, is the point of a self-directed IRA is to put you, the IRA holder, the IRA owner, in the driver's seat. You're the one calling the shots, making the investment decisions. Really, when my clients come to me, if they don't have an investment opportunity already identified, they at least know this is the type of investing they want to be doing, right? Real estate investing, investing in promissory notes, or private company stock, things like that, right? So the biggest, I would say, piece of misinformation, though, is that there's really no legal distinction between the IRAs that we have here and what some people call regular IRAs, or an IRA you find anywhere else, be it Fidelity, Charles Schwab, any of those bigger custodians. It's really all the same investment vehicle. The term self-directed we really use more as a marketing term, kind of in this industry, just to show the distinction between some of these other public custodians and self-directed custodians such as Quest. That distinction being that we help you and help our clients invest in private assets, alternative assets, things that are outside of the public market, right? Stocks, bonds, mutual funds. If you want stuff like that, you go to a custodian that can help you invest in that. Like I said, Fidelity, Charles Schwab, any of those, TD Ameritrade, JP Morgan, you name it, right? So that's really the biggest difference. Like I said, there's no legal distinction. That's really the only difference between the IRAs we have. But from the standpoint of the IRS, it's the exact same type of investment vehicle, believe it or not. So now that we kind of understand the difference or lack thereof, right? What are the benefits to doing it? Why would I open a self-directed IRA over an IRA elsewhere? Okay. So number one, guys, is going to be the diversification. You can invest in stocks, in bonds. You can put, some money here in value, some money in growth, domestic, international, right? Put it in some low yield government T-bonds, anything like that. But I like to say that until you have some money invested outside of the market, you're not truly diversified. It's almost just like putting your eggs in different part of the same basket. So I really, encourage you to consider that when you think about your portfolio. What does it look like? How diversified am I, right? Number two is obviously going to be the tax savings. We'll dive more into this, but this is probably the most important piece of why you would invest through an IRA, right? Whether it be investing in the stock market, investing in a private asset. This is really the bread and butter of why our clients come to us to make investments, is for the tax savings, whether it's tax deferred, tax free, and we'll dive into that here on the next slide. The last one, guys, is going to be investing in what you know best. So like I said, we have clients all the time that are real estate agents themselves, or, they've been in the industry. They know about apartment complex syndications or about oil and gas investments, something like that. They're investing in what they know and what they feel comfortable in, right? Which I think is really important and a pretty big advantage to using a self-directed IRA. So now what type of plans can be self-directed? And this is kind of where we'll get into what are these tax advantages. So we really break this down into three different types of categories of the accounts that we offer. Number one being your personal account. So these are the traditional and Roth IRAs. Traditional IRAs are what we refer to as tax deferred or pre-tax accounts. So when you make contributions into a tax deferred account, I would think of probably your 401k. Most 401ks are also tax deferred. Now they can have a post-tax portion, but typically speaking, most people's 401ks are tax deferred. So that meaning that when you get paid, that money comes straight out of your, your income, be it W-2, 1099, whatever that may be, comes straight out of your paycheck, doesn't get taxed, and goes into that retirement savings account, IRA, 401k, whatever that may be. I guess because of that, the reason that we call it tax deferred is because you haven't paid the taxes on it up front. So you continue to invest it, you continue to grow the account. You don't pay any taxes as long as the money is still sitting there in the IRA. It's not until later on down the line, once you retire and then you start needing the money to live on, that's when the IRS comes in and says, hey, we've let you defer, right? Push these taxes off long enough. Now we're going to come in, get our share, of the money, the taxes that you owe us. So that's what we mean when we talk about tax deferred or pre-tax accounts. On the flip side is the Roth accounts. And this is what, a lot of you may have heard of. A lot of people are talking about them right now because of how advantageous they can be, especially for younger people. You're just getting started investing, but really anybody can utilize a Roth IRA. These are post-tax accounts, meaning you've already paid your income taxes on the money. You're still able to contribute that to a Roth IRA and invest that completely tax-free, right? And that's such a huge advantage when it comes to any type of investing, because you grow that money and that's all yours to keep. You don't have to pay any capital gains tax or anything like that on the growth. Now, obviously, there are some qualifications and requirements that you have to meet in retirement. I would say the most common two, and certainly there are exceptions. If you had more questions on this, I'd be happy to discuss, but the most common two qualifications are, number one, you are age 59 and a half, and number two, you have had a Roth IRA. Doesn't necessarily have to be at Quest, but a Roth IRA opened and funded somewhere. So those are the two big things. As long as you meet those qualifications, you're able to take all that money out completely tax-free, even the gains, right? So next piece of this is the employer accounts. And I don't want to dive too far into this, guys, just because there are a lot of unique subtleties and details to these. But we do offer 3 different, employer plans similar to any other, self-directed custodian. These being SEP IRA, Simple IRA, and Solo 401k. These each have their own, unique contribution limits to them. Sorry about that. I'm not sure why the light keeps turning off. Excuse me, guys. But these have their own unique, each have their own unique contribution limits to them. The traditional Roth IRAs are $6,000 or $7,000 depending on your age for 2022. Next year it's going up by 500. So you'll be able to contribute 6,500 or 7,500, like I said, depending on your age. After age 50, there's a $1,000 catch-up contribution for people that are older looking to make a little bit more contributions into the account. The last one, guys, is our specialty accounts. Now, these consist of our Coverdell Education Savings Account and our Health Savings Account. So the reason that we put these in their own category is because, like it says, they're special, they're unique. For the Education Savings Account, they're meant for children and families trying to save for education expenses. You're able to contribute $2,000 per child per year, all the way up until they're age 18. And the advantage to these over something like a 529, if you guys have ever heard of a 529 plan, is you can actually use these not just for higher education expenses, but elementary school, junior high, high school. So that's the big advantage to the ESA. On the flip side, the HSA, Health Savings Account, we like to call this the account with the best of both worlds, because you can put in pre-tax funds, and take the money out completely tax-free as long as it's going towards qualified health expenses. So that's kind of the accounts in a nutshell that can be self-directed. Now, with that being said, I want to talk about kind of the bad side of it. So we've gone over the benefits, we've gone over what accounts can be self-directed. Now let's sort of get into the restrictions. So there are actually 3 types of restrictions. Number 1, the people restrictions, transaction restrictions, and investment restrictions. So the first one we're going to go into are the people restrictions. We like to call these disqualified persons, or anyone that cannot enter a benefit or do any sort of transaction with your IRA. Believe it or not, guys, the first person on this list is actually you. So you are not allowed to, or the IRS says you're not allowed to commingle, enter into any sort of benefit or transaction with your IRA. As we move on, the list is actually broken down kind of, I know it looks a little complicated, but it really is a little bit more, I guess you could say, intuitive than this. The best way to describe it is that the disqualified persons are you, your spouse, so I get my mouse over here, member of S family, so that being your spouse, ancestors, so your lineal ascendants, parents, grandparents, and your lineal descendants, meaning kids, grandkids, right? These other ones that it's talking about are basically, to sum it up, it means that any sort of entity, company, anything like that, that any of these people right here, you or your family, if they own, operate, manage, or are what the IRS deems as highly compensated by a company that you want to invest in or wants, to lend to your IRA, anything like that, that's also going to be disqualified, guys. So moving on, prohibited transactions. This is basically talking about what these disqualified people cannot do. So they cannot buy, sell, trade, loan, or exchange with your IRA, whether that is directly or indirectly. A lot of people will call and ask, well, can I have this, my son loan to third party first, and then they loan me the funds? A lot of times the IRS catches on to that, guys. Still going to be prohibited. So I think that's the main thing to look at there. Next, no, that's not the end of the slides, but I like to put this up there because there can be a lot of confusion and certainly a lot of gray area when talking about prohibited transactions and disqualified persons, because a lot of what the IRS puts out there is not necessarily set in stone, right? We see a lot of case studies, a lot of court cases all the time where the IRS is deciding what's going to be prohibited, what's not. So there's really no standard. Sometimes answers will change depending on who you ask. But if you want to have a conversation, you have some questions on, is this prohibited? Am I disqualified? Please, me, any of the other IRA specialists will be happy to talk to you guys. So moving on from that, now that we've talked about what you cannot invest in, let's kind of go into the good stuff, right? What can I invest in? This is, I would say, a very limited list, but the three main things are going to be real estate, private entities, and promissory notes. These are the three main things that we see our clients investing in. So whether it's going to be apartment complexes, condominiums, tax liens, foreclosures, anything like that on the real estate side, we have a lot of people doing Airbnbs and short-term, long-term rentals. Those are really popular as well. On the private entity side, investing with any sort of LLC, limited partnership, anything like that, guys. You can invest in private company stock, invest, with a syndication, anything like that. As well as notes. You can loan the money secure, unsecured, mortgages, anything like that through a self-directed IRA. Like I said, there's really so much you can do through these accounts. It's limited, I would say, by those prohibited transactions and anything outside of the public market. Typically, if you are able to invest in it personally, you can typically do it through a self-directed IRA. So the last piece here, guys, is how do I fund my IRA? Now I've got this set up. I'm ready to put funds in it so that I can start investing. Number one is going to be doing it through contributions, whether it's coming from a checking or savings account, or maybe even straight from your employer paycheck, from your employer, right? Like I said, the contribution limits to these accounts do vary just depending on what the account is for like a personal IRA, that being a traditional or Roth. I mentioned, 6,000 or 7,000 this year, going up to 6,500 or 7,500 next year. So when looking at making contributions, that's certainly something to consider. You can't just take everything that you've got in savings and put it into the IRA all at once. They do have to be built up over time, and that's just per IRS regulation, right? So you can transfer from another IRA, whether, if you have another IRA elsewhere, whether it's a SEP IRA, some type of employer account, traditional Roth IRA, doesn't matter. You are able to move those funds here, and actually it's not even reported to the IRS, so it doesn't create a taxable event because it's a like-kind IRA to IRA transfer. The last one, guys, is moving funds over from any old employer plan or what we call a qualified retirement plan. So this can be 401k, 403b, TSP, TRS, guys, you name it, EQRP plans as well. These are what we call rollover. So they're a little bit different than an IRA transfer because you're actually rolling over from an employer plan. It can be split into two different types of rollovers, and we don't necessarily have to get into that today. But those are, I would say, the three ways to fund: contributions, transferring, or rolling over. So like I said, guys, really appreciate the time. So now what is the next step? If you are curious, you have some questions, or maybe you're interested, ready to set one up, guys, please give me a call, shoot me an email. I'm happy to speak with anybody anytime. We can schedule a meeting. I would be happy to do any of that. So please let me know. And actually, I think we have a promotion going on until the end of the day Wednesday. So I decided to do this, special for you guys because Mark brought me on. If y'all do want to open an account, typically we charge $100 for our accounts, but if you're interested, we'll waive that for any of you. It just has to be by the end of the day Wednesday. So let me know. Let me know if you have any questions and, after the call or anything like that. And I think it's kind of it for me. So yeah, I really appreciate y'all's time. And Mark, I don't know if you want to go into the questions now.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Collin. That was awesome.
Yeah.
So if you guys have any questions, you guys can feel free to unmute yourselves or write your question in the chat. Rachel said, can you share that contact information again? I actually copied and pasted your contact information on my notes, so I can just do that.
I can, and I'm having trouble trying to stop sharing my screen. I don't know what happened to my.
Actually, do you mind if I stop you?
Yeah, no, go ahead. Go ahead. For some reason, I just can't find my control panel. There we go. Okay.
I had a question. So I know that you mentioned it, but I just want to reiterate and make sure I'm understanding it correctly. So an existing 401k plan with your employer is something that you can convert into doing something like a real estate investment.
Yeah, that's a great question. So I know on there it had mentioned older 401k plans. Sometimes plans that you have with a current employer, or what we call active 401k plans, are also eligible for a rollover. It really just depends on the custodian, whoever's the custodian for the plan, and the plan administrator. So you could probably reach out to like your HR department, or if you know who your plan administrator is, they would be able to tell you if you're able to do what we call an in-service rollover. That means,
rollover. Okay.
yeah, that means that you're able to take up to what you've personally contributed to the plan and roll it over to another IRA elsewhere.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you, Danielle.
Hey, Colin, thanks for the presentation. The question
Absolutely.
I have is, I've talked with like Vanguard or whatever companies I've had accounts with and told them I'm trying to put money in this deal, and they always tell me, "Oh, the only option you have is to pull it out, and then you get dinged," right? So my question is, what is the process to actually do this? I've gone online, apparently you have to create an LLC or something like that, and you have to use the LLC to fund the deal. Like, how does that work? And that's kind of where I'm always stumped.
Okay. Yeah, yeah. I like to say we make it pretty basic. There are people that do it through an LLC. It doesn't have to be done that way. What you're talking about is, what some people might refer to as checkbook control. Essentially because doing it through an IRA does certainly cause barriers, right? There are some restrictions. It's hard for you, you can't necessarily be a part of the deal, or things like that. Like if you, for instance, let's say you want your IRA to purchase your house. That's obviously going to be prohibited. But things like that. So that's kind of where the LLC comes into place, just if people want to get around some of those restrictions. And that's not something we don't do. What people call checkbook control LLCs here, meaning they're the manager of that LLC. And obviously, if your IRA is investing into that, that's going to be prohibited. We do have some people who will use LLCs if they're doing like a rehab, because it certainly makes it easier to pay money out to contractors or vendors, anything like that. But the typical process that we have here is, number one, setting up the account. That's going to happen no matter what, right? Then we go into funding, and it takes us about 24 to 48 hours for just about any of our processes. So the account is open within, that 41 to 2.
Oh yeah, we can do it like this.
And then, no worries, David. And then, come on, let's not try to thought. Once we have the account open, established, we'll be able to go into funding. So like I mentioned, whether it's going to be contributions, a transfer, a rollover, anything like that. And then we go through our investment process. So once you have something identified, you'd let me, one of the other IRA specialists, know, here's my investment. This is what I want to do. I want to buy property A or loan money to person B, whatever that is. We want to see, there's obviously going to be some supporting documentation. So if it's in real estate, we want to see the warranty deed, the contract, things like that. If you're doing a note, we're going to want to see the promissory note. And then we have our internal documents that you'll fill out as well. Once we review all that, make sure everything's in good standing, good order with the IRS, nothing's prohibited or anything like that, we'll be able to fund. So we can, send the money to basically wherever you tell us.
And just to clarify, as long as you have an IRA or you open an account with you guys, if there's a deal, you guys just handle it from beginning to the end. as long as you have whatever documentation you need. So I don't have to go and create any LLCs or do anything else.
No, you don't. You don't. And yeah, we'll walk you through every step of the way. Some people prefer to go through the LLC method. I would say, most of our clients just do it straight through the IRA, because, we have a lot of checks and balances and help you with all the paperwork and documentation on our end, which is, I would say a pretty big advantage too.
And what would you say is the turnaround time? I know 48 hours to get the account going, but in terms of from beginning to the end to actually get the deal funded.
From beginning to end, and sometimes it does depend on the investment, but if you're coming into this with already having an asset or an investment opportunity in mind, I would say probably you want to give yourself anywhere from 2 to 3 weeks, just to set expectations mildly.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, great. I have a question from David. He asks, if we wanted to source self-directed IRA opportunities / leads to call on, do you have any recommendations?
Say that one more time. If I wanted to source.
So he asks, if we wanted to source self-directed IRA opportunities / leads to call on, do you have any recommendations?
So like if you had, I think what David's asking is like if self-directed clients here, had some money they wanted to loan. Is that right, David? Something like that.
David, are you there to clarify your question? Uh-oh.
Let's assume yes.
Yeah, we'll go with that. So I can't really give out any client information, or a lot of times we'll have people come in, pitch their deals to us. And if we have clients that say, hey, I'm looking for a wholesaler, or I want to do this type of investing, something like that, we can certainly make the referral, make that connection. One thing we do is we do them, I would say 3 times a month. We have these deal pitching events. They're not specifically for this purpose. We have networking. People will come in. We do them in person and online, so they're offered in both platforms. And people can network. We typically have some kind of education, and then the last piece is our deal pitching. So we'll have people that come on. They'll be able to talk to our clients that are in attendance, explain their deals, and that's kind of the best way I would say to do it. We have one coming up, I want to say on December 6th. It's like an ugly sweater party. There's not going to be any education or anything like that. But strictly for networking, strictly for deal pitching. So there's going to be plenty of time. So David, if you're interested in that, or anybody else, I certainly welcome you on. You can, if you go onto our website, just questtrustcompany.com, and you look at the events, you'll be able to see that there.
Beautiful. Now, question from Rizhab. He asks, what are the options available to roll existing 401k accounts with the employer to a self-directed IRA?
Yes. Okay. And I think this is very similar to Danielle's question that we kind of addressed. You're going to have to find out first from the plan administrator if they allow for in-service rollovers, meaning that you are allowed to take up to what you've contributed into that 401k plan or that employer plan, and you're able to move that over to an IRA. But first you have to find out if the plan allows for in-service rollovers.
Yeah, so Colin, just to follow up on that question, does it attract any additional fees or any in-service rollovers in your experience?
No, there's no extra fees. I would say that maybe the only fee that would apply is if you're going to wire over the money. Some custodians may charge $25, $30 to do that, but that's typically about it. Most of the time there's not fees. Again, I can't, guarantee that or speak for every plan, right? Because they're all different. But yeah, from my experience, I would say no.
All right, thanks.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, Colin, I have a question, and this is multifamily specific. Okay. So let's say I invest in a deal. I have a self-directed IRA. I invest in a deal, and the deal closes. I got my cash flow, I got my capital gains. Am I able to do a 1031 exchange? And if so, how does that look like?
So you can't do a 1031 exchange within the IRA because that tax benefit is already there. Once that money comes back into the IRA, you're still not paying taxes on it. It's at the very least deferred, if not tax free, right? So there's no reason to 1031 because it's when it comes back into the IRA, you can continue to reinvest that money without having any sort of taxable event as long as it's all staying within the IRA.
Which makes sense. Okay, thank you.
Collin, just to follow up on that, so you could put that into another property, or whatever you want at that point.
Absolutely. Once it's liquid cash, you can do whatever you want with it. You can move it back to a public investment custodian and invest in stocks. You can put it back into a private deal here. Once the cash is here, absolutely, it's you're just to do what you want with it.
Awesome.
Also, another quick question now that I just thought about it. Now, I know you're not a CPA, so you don't have to answer me, but so let's say your cash flow, and because depreciation is a beautiful thing, how does it look like in a self-directed IRA in terms of when you get your K1 and it shows, your profit, your loss? How does the IRS keep track of, okay, he doesn't necessarily have to pay taxes on his cash flow because of depreciation, and how does all of that look like?
Yeah, so that's certainly more of a CPA question. I will say one thing to consider. Once you get that K1, you get the value from the syndicator or the company, whatever that may be. One important thing, and this is one thing that a lot of people don't know about, and sometimes CPAs don't even know about, is what we refer to as UBIT tax, or unrelated business income tax. So because this IRA is investing, well, let me backtrack. There's a smaller portion of UBIT called UDFI, unrelated debt financed income tax. When these syndicators, they have a lot of debt, right? Sometimes like 70-30 debt to capital, I would say is probably the most common. Because this IRA is making an investment in a debt leveraged asset, it's going to bring on that UDFI tax. We typically tell our clients after everything's said and done that it's not something to worry about because it's offset by any losses, and then you're still only paying tax proportionate to what the debt leverage is, right? That debt to capital ratio. So we typically tell our clients it's not a big deal. We don't calculate the UDFI. That's kind of what we leave up to the CPAs. But that's kind of how I guess I would approach that.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Now, Dane asks a question. And the question is, to clarify, would the money come back into the 401k or a qualified plan? Or can we structure the money to be directed to the investor personally?
Would the money come back into the 401k or qualified plan, or can we structure the money to be directed to the investor personally? Dana, I guess I'm not quite sure I understand your question. After an investment, the money from whatever that investment may be does have to come back into the IRA. From there, you're completely free to do what you want with it. If you want to reinvest it into a private deal, into a public investment, if you want to distribute it to yourself and take the tax hit, you can do that. It's kind of up to you. I think that's at least that's my understanding of the question.
So like distributions, like if you were to invest into a multifamily property and you're a limited partner and you collect distributions, would those distributions go directly into the self-directed IRA, like direct deposited right into there, or like would they have to go in and put it in themselves? Like how would?
We would set it up so that the company is paying straight back into the IRA.
Okay, thank you.
Does that answer your question? You're talking about like dividend payments, right? Coming back from the investment. Yeah, absolutely.
And Collin, that's required, right?
Yes, it is. Okay. That stuff has to come back into the self-directed IRA.
Okay.
I mean, if it didn't, and the IRS came knocking, they're auditing your accounts or something like that, and they find that you received all this money back, but it never returned to your Quest IRA, then that's where the problems really hit, and potentially the entire account could be forfeited and lost, and you would lose all that money. Oh, that's on the extreme side, but those are the potential consequence there. What other questions?
I don't see any more questions in the chat, but does anybody else have any questions?
I have a question.
Hey, Rick.
I was trying to figure out where to raise my hand. It's not the normal place, something different. Anyway, thanks for this great presentation. Does each account have an account representative that we talk to when we have an upcoming deal that we can notify them about ahead of time?
Yes, absolutely, we do, and that's what my role is here. So I'm the IRA specialist. We call ourselves, your dedicated IRA specialist, dedicated representative, whatever you want to refer to it as. We'll be your, or myself personally, I can be your main point of contact here. So that way, when you do find an investment, if you need to make a contribution or a transfer, whatever that may be, we're here to handle all of that. Now, I might not necessarily be the one that actually funds your investment and reviews all the documents. But I'm kind of there every step of the way to make sure everything's running smoothly. And then we'll, get our private entities team or our real estate team involved once it gets to that part of the transaction.
Okay, so you do review like signature blocks and the custodian things to fill out and stuff like that. Okay, good.
Not me personally, but
somebody,
Quest as a whole does, yeah.
Because I invested in 2 deals through my IRA, and I'm still to this moment skeptical whether they were filled out correctly, because my custodian kept wanting me to tell him how much to withhold on the taxes, and I'm going, I don't need to. I'm not pulling it out. We're going directly from the IRA into the thing, and it's going to come back to you guys.
Yeah.
And I'm still skeptical, and and I have a fund, so as a fund manager, I'm going to be on the other side of it, receiving funds. So I just need to make sure that whoever I'm dealing with, like your group, at least can help me along, from that point of that little slice of the deal, of the transaction. So
yeah, so we do help with all that stuff. Yeah.
So because you're like, I've already had some people ask about who to go to, so. I could be referring you, I guess, people that are looking for a different group to work with. So I'll be contacting you for possibly my own deal plus, my own IRA plus others.
Yeah, that sounds great, Rick. I'd be happy to speak with you, speak to anybody you refer. We do, and I guess this is for everybody that's interested. We have a referral program where we will credit not only the referee, but the referrer $25 for each account. So that's a little something that we have. And then one other thing to mention, I know you said you have some active deals. We can also transfer assets. So it's a little bit more of a process than just cash, just because, if you're moving it from one account to another, a lot of times for a property, for example, you'll have to, redo the warranty deed and the contract and all of that stuff. So it does make for a lengthier process, but it can be done if you're interested.
Well, that made me think of a new question. So I put my money in from my existing IRA, and it's a 3 to 5, 7-year-old, whatever it is. Can I switch where it's going to go back to, or I haven't received any payouts yet, but I guess that's irrelevant. But I'm just wondering, do people switch midstream from one custodian to another, or one IRA? Okay.
Yeah, and it would be, that would probably be the simplest part. You just, whoever you're doing the investment with, you'd give them our banking information, our routing number, that stuff, so they can put the funds back into your account here rather than going to nowhere land, I guess.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
All right, Christian asks a question I was also going to ask you as well. Will this presentation be available after the call? Meaning, are you able to send me the slides?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm happy to send them to you.
Great.
Hey, Colin, I got one more.
Awesome. Let's hear it.
So are there any other things that you can do? Like once you have the money, say into a deal, say into a multifamily property, are you able to take potentially like loans out of that, like you can in your regular IRA, like loans against that or any other?
Not through, you can do that through a 401k.
Right.
And we do offer solo 401ks for like self-employed individuals. Those are able to take loans, but not through an IRA.
Okay. That's what I was thinking. Okay. Thank you.
Mhm.
New question. Is there a minimum to open an account?
No minimum. And in fact, we have clients all the time that will open the account. Maybe they just want to get everything ready for a deal they have coming 6 months from now. That's completely fine. If you just want to open it and leave it unfunded, no worries.
Like in my situation, I might leave the existing one there, but then have any capital that comes out of the deals come directly into an account with you.
I'm sure that could, you would probably still have to move the funds back to that IRA, but then once they're there, if you want to do it, on a semi-annual basis or something like that, then you could transfer those funds
I see.
to an IRA here. Just because of the way that it works with the IRS and the reporting, they still have to see that money's coming back into the IRA for their reporting purposes.
To the same one.
Correct.
To the same account. Okay.
Where the investment is being held. Mm-hmm.
All right.
Any other question, guys?
This is Richard here. Oh, hey, sorry. I don't really have a question. I just want to say thanks, man. Like, it's definitely dropping some knowledge right here. I'm taking some notes, and I appreciate you guys' time putting it together and sharing everything with us.
Absolutely. Yeah, I've seen some thank yous coming in the chat too. I'm happy to do it. If you guys have more questions or need to do it one-on-one on Zoom, I'm happy to do that too. And like I told Mark, I'm available to continue doing things like these. I mean, I'm happy to do them. I'm always looking to educate, and I really enjoy this and find fun in helping others. So absolutely.
Absolutely. Quest is a great company just because self-directing your IRA can seem very intimidating. But just speaking with Collin and just their whole company as a whole, they make the process seamless and not as intimidating as you would think it'd be. So thank you, Collin, for definitely doing this call. I appreciate it a lot.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thank you. And I'm not afraid to admit that I had no idea you could do this.
And a lot of people don't. So there's no shame in that.
And it's almost the same as investing in multifamily. There's people that don't know about that either. So we're all about the education here. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, no worries.
Now, quick question, Collin. So what are the fees associated with you guys being our custodian?
Yeah, so like I mentioned, typically it's $100 to open up the account. And if anybody wanted to see our fee schedule, it actually does show anything we would charge, from the account opening fee to our annual administration, the recurring fees and things like that. It's on our website. I can also send it to you if you guys email me. But the best way to explain it is there's, I would say, 4 fees that apply to most all of our clients' accounts. Number 1, $100 to open the account. Number 2 is the transaction fee, or that investment, going through the investment process, is $125. 3, what we charge to actually send out the funds when we're actually making the investment. We can do a few different ways. $30 if you want to do a wire, $5 for us to send a check, and then it's free if you want to do an ACH transfer. And that's just literally what the bank is charging us, right, to do that. And then the final fee in what I was referring to, that annual administration fee, is our only recurring one. So there's no hidden fees or anything like that, no monthly fees. But there's a few different options on this one too, which is why I would encourage you to look at the fee schedule. What I typically tell people is it's not going to be any more expensive than $350 per asset per year. There are options on that one as well. That's why, it's kind of hard to to tell you exactly what the fees would be. If you went with another option, it would be based on the account value and would change according to, how many funds or how much funds you have in your account. Yeah, if you're interested, I would say look at that, or we could, talk about kind of if you gave me a more better representation of what your investment horizon was like, how many investments you're going to be doing. I could certainly walk you through what's going to be the most cost effective.
That's awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh,
Can you clarify what you mean by asset? Is that the account, or is it like something that I'm invested in? through the account?
Any investment would be what we call an asset. Yeah.
So if I had 10 investments, then that'd be 10 times the max of 350.
Correct. That's at that point, it's probably going to be better. We have, if you're really doing that many investments and, you've got 10 active investments at all times, we're probably going to want to put you on what we call our gold family plan, where it's just a $3,000 flat fee that covers everything. Transaction fees. The only thing it doesn't cover is the wire fee, but the administrative fees. I think you can open up to like 20 accounts for, between friends and family. If you wanted to put friends on your gold family plan, that's, something you could do. Just be $3,000 for all that. So, yeah, there are different ways to kind of manipulate things where it can, it's not going to be, 350 for every investment you make, right?
Thanks.
all right, guys. Any other questions? Going once, going twice.
I just say thank you. Just say thank you to you for setting this up, and thank you, Collin, for being here, educating us.
It's a pleasure to do it. Absolutely. And thank you again, Mark, and John for having me on, guys. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes, and for those of you that know somebody that wants to see this call, we will be editing this video and then posting it on our YouTube channel. And then for those of you that want the slideshow, I am going to have Collin send me the presentation. But if you guys want to reach out to him and start building that relationship, I'd definitely reach out to him personally, and then he can shoot you over the presentation. Well, if you guys don't have any more questions, then this is it. Happy Monday, guys.
Thank you so much. Good night, everyone.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
And I thank you guys again for being
And
here.
thank you again, Collin, for jumping on this call. We deeply appreciate it. A lot of knowledge here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I'm
Thank
happy.
you.
Yeah.
Thanks, Collin.
All right,
Thank you
guys.
so much.
Enjoy your night.